I'm caught in a web of deceit, feeling physically ill from the stress. The secret I've been keeping from Tristan could destroy us all, and to make matters worse, someone's stolen the very evidence that could expose me. Thank you for your likes and subscriptions. You can leave your comments in the comments section. 𝐿𝐷𝐸, where is it you said you were again, dear? Nana Francesca asked Joshua, who was currently seated on my right. We were in her SUV, which was being driven by one of her private guards who wasn't very chatty, and believe me, Mikey, who was seated in the passenger seat, had tried. All he had succeeded in doing really was earning a death look when he tried to change the radio station. I was helping B with her car, Joshua replied. He was sitting behind Mikey's seat on my right. That's all? Nana Francesca asked from my other end. Yeah, Joshua spoke. Michael coughed. Joshua kicked his seat a little too roughly. No matter. Whatever you were doing with that young lady, I just hope you kept it in your shorts. It would be terrible to get intimate with her before you met your mate. I mean, look at your bro. Nana. Michael snapped. I suddenly noticed that their eyes were on me. I'm sorry, what? I asked. To be honest, I hadn't really been paying attention to what they were saying. I was feeling sick. Like seriously ill. My stomach was churning and my palms were sweaty, and I was scared, and at the same time I wanted to cry. This wouldn't have happened if I had just told Tristan earlier. None of this would have happened. Now someone had incriminating evidence about me. And who knows what they would do with it. Someone had stolen it. Michael looked somewhat relieved at my obliviousness. We were just talking about, taxes. Joshua shook his head. I turned to Nana Francesca, who just rolled her eyes. Okay. She turned to look at me. You've been awfully quiet, dear. Is everything okay? I do hope Michael here didn't give you a concussion. She reached over to touch my forehead. Nana. Michael grumbled. Nana Francesca gave him an accusatory glance before looking back at me. Anyway, this is where I leave you. I looked out the window and found that we were already at the manor. Michael and Joshua had already started disembarking. Dear. Nana Francesca placed her hands on mine. I know what's going on. She did. How did she find out? You're worried about tomorrow. She spoke. Yeah, let's go with that. Don't worry, everything has already been taken care of. All you have to do is show up. She reassured me. Thanks. I told her, knowing I wouldn't actually have to do anything was actually reassuring. No problem, dear, and I do hope you like the dress. 𝐿𝐷𝐸. She winked. Dress? I asked in confusion. Oh, after you stood me up yesterday, I took the liberty of picking one out myself. The girl helped. She added the last part with a roll of her eyes. It was disturbing how much I actually didn't care that I hadn't chosen my own dress for the ball. Last year I would have gone crazy if someone else had chosen what I was going to wear. But right now I really didn't care. A ball didn't really matter with everything that was going on. Who am I kidding? Nana Francesca spoke. You will love it. It's equal parts classy, sexy, and modest. Let's see those uptight elders say something about that. Oh, speaking of, Tristan told me about the meeting he had scheduled for you with the council. I mean, of course I will be on your side, but dear, I must tell you that those other old farts can be quite backwards, so you will have to give them an answer for the mating ceremony. The mating ceremony? Of course I had heard about it. I just hadn't been to one before. And seeing as to how Tristan and my relationship was conditional, I didn't think it was anything to consider. Oh, you look so tired. I'll let you get some rest. You'll need it. I nodded. Honestly, my body was here in the car with her, but my mind was somewhere else entirely. I got out of the vehicle, surprised to see Michael and Joshua still standing there. Good night, dear. Nana Francesca called, waving and blowing a kiss. Good night, Nana. Michael and Joshua spoke simultaneously. Not you two. She spoke, giving them both dirty looks. Joshua's jaw dropped and Michael placed his hand on his chest. Nana Francesca smiled at me before closing the door and telling her driver to drive off. I can bet you $100 that she's going home to revise her will right now. Michael spoke. Well, what do you expect? You basically assaulted her new favorite grandchild. Joshua mocked. Michael glared at him, then he looked at me with an apologetic look on his face. You did not hurt me. I promise I'm fine. I quickly let out before he started apologizing again. He looked reassured enough and turned back to his brother. And besides, if she writes us out of her will, it's because of you. Do me a favor next time and keep your mind closed while you fornicate with B. Oh, but then how would you know what it's like to be with an actual real girl? Joshua told him sarcastically. Shut up. Michael spoke, blushing slightly. Or what? Joshua smirked. I was sure Michael was going to pounce on his brother, but thank God the front door swung open and Anita's face appeared. Oh, finally. She sighed happily before pulling me into a hug. She pulled away and beamed at me. Oh, when Tristan told me you were finally moving in, I was over the moon. Temporarily, Nita. Joshua spoke as he walked into the house. Anita looked hopefully at me. Unless she changes her mind and decides to stay permanently. I smiled at her, but I didn't say anything. I didn't want to give her false hope. Anyway, let me officially welcome you to the manor. Anita spoke as she pulled me inside. I just know you'll enjoy your stay. We are so delighted to have you. Oh, definitely. Nita spent all morning cleaning guest room. Joshua spoke. And she took out the good linens just for you. Michael added. Only the best for our Luna. She smiled at me. Well, until the mating ceremony when you move into Tristan's room. My eyes widened. What? Anita frowned. Oh dear, you have discussed the ceremony, haven't you? No. I responded. Oh. Anita spoke as if this was the strangest thing she had learnt about me. Anita, Crystal didn't grow up here. Michael spoke up. Oh yes, right. Anita spoke quickly, but she still looked at me strangely. What was I missing? Hey Nita, is dinner ready? I'm starved. Mikey announced, diffusing the awkward silence that had settled. Oh yes. Anita seemed grateful for the change of topic. Your brother and Bridget already ate, so I suppose it will just be the four of us. Actually, I don't think I'm hungry anymore. Joshua grumbled before turning around. Oh Josh, don't be that way. Anita spoke softly. But Joshua didn't stop, he kept walking, saying something about homework. Anita gave Michael a pleading look. Michael sighed. I'll go talk to him. He turned and followed his brother. I looked at Anita, confused by what just happened. She frowned in the direction the boys had gone. They haven't had a proper meal together in weeks. She spoke. Last night Tristan didn't even make it home. Oh. My mind went back to the night Tristan told me the reason he wasn't always able to make it to meals. Of course he must have been busier than usual now, more than ever. Is he home now? I asked. Anita nodded. Up in his room. I was surprised I didn't sense him immediately. The empathy link must have been fading. Do you mind if I go up and talk to him? I asked Anita. Sure, dear. I couldn't help but feel like I had disappointed her. Aunt Sarah would definitely scold me if she knew I was making someone wait after they had cooked for me. But this was important. I followed the familiar route through the mansion until I got to the staircase. I didn't exactly remember where Tristan's room had been, so I followed his scent. I knew I was heading in the right direction when I heard a laugh. The sound was strange, but I immediately knew who it was. Tristan was laughing. For a second I smiled to myself, a part of me selfishly wishing that I had been the one to do or say something to make him laugh. I stopped in the hallway and peeked through the door and saw Tristan laying in his bed. His hands behind his head, looking the most at peace than I had seen him in a while. He had an easy smile on his face as he listened to whatever Bridget was telling him. Oh, and did I mention he was shirtless? I was glad to see him happy. I really was. But I wasn't so happy about seeing him half naked with another girl in bed. Okay, so maybe they weren't in bed together. Bridget sat a respectable distance away but still on his bed. She was fully clothed, but I couldn't help but still feel a pang of jealousy. The way she looked at him was so full of love. The way her body seemed so comfortable being in his presence. Bridget loved Tristan. I could tell. Maybe I had known for a long time. Did he love her back? I wondered, fearing the answer. I was about to turn away. Watching them like this suddenly felt wrong, but before I could, Tristan must have picked up on my scent, or maybe the mating bond had alerted him of my presence. Crystal. I felt my face heat up at being caught. I walked into the room and waved awkwardly. Bridget rolled her eyes, but Tristan's face still held an easy smile. Hey, did you just get in? Tristan asked. My palms felt sweaty and I wiped them on my jeans. Yeah, a few minutes ago actually. Hey, I was hoping we could talk. I wasn't planning on beating around the bush this time. Things were a lot more urgent. Tristan didn't even open his mouth when Bridget spoke up. Tristan is tired. He needs to get some rest so that Peter and I can get some rest, so if you don't mind. I wanted to say, didn't seem like you want him to get some res, with all the laughing that I heard just a few seconds ago. But I knew that was jealous Crystal talking, and jealous Crystal needs to chill because she doesn't even have the right to be jealous. Bridge. Tristan sighed. I looked at him and frowned. Bridget had a point. He really did look exhausted. I wanted to chicken out right then, to tell him it was nothing and scurry away. But I knew this needed to be said. Roman contacted me. I blurted out. What? Bridget yelled, standing to her feet. Tristan just sat up silently looking, not as confused as I had expected. I wondered again if I was doing the right thing. My hands were shaking now. I could just picture Roman looking at me in disappointment, saying, "You let me down." Well, you let me down first, Ro. I looked at Tristan. Bridget did too. I had been expecting her to yell my ears off, but she looked at Tristan like she expected him to do it. For what felt like a while, Tristan was so quiet that it scared me and made my heart beat faster. When Tristan finally spoke. Yesterday. I bit my lower lip nervously. It was after the attack. I was home and then I realized that there had been a tracking device in my phone case and, "You just now realized this?" Bridget asked, not looking convinced. "I'm not lying. I swear." "Show us," she demanded. Now for the worst part. "I can't. It went missing." Bridget didn't look convinced. "That's freaking convenient. I swear I put it in my bag and left it for a few minutes to go to the bathroom, and I got back and it was gone." I spoke in a desperate tone. Bridget stepped closer to me. "I don't buy it. I'm not lying." I spoke more firmly, but my voice still cracked because of the nerves that were still eating me up. "Why didn't you come to us sooner?" She continued pressing. I took a step back. She looked so mad right now. "I don't know." "You don't know." Bridget scoffed. "Tell me, what did you talk about with you little lover?" "Nothing. We didn't talk. He texted me and I didn't respond." "I don't believe you." "I'm not lying." I yelled, and it now felt like I was pleading with her. "Bridge," Tristan finally spoke, putting his legs on the floor. "Give us a minute." Bridget didn't look happy about her alpha's order, but she didn't protest. She gave me a stone-cold glare and said Raphael was right. With that, Bridget stormed out of the room. I didn't know what that meant, but I couldn't imagine it was good. Tristan stood up. He walked over to his closet and grabbed a shirt before putting it over his head. "Sit down, Crystal," he told me. I walked towards his bed and sat at the edge. I studied his face, trying to read his emotion, but there was none at all. So I couldn't tell if he was mad at me like Bridget had been. He folded his arms over his chest. "What happened?" he asked calmly. "Start from the beginning." I took in a deep breath and explained everything, trying to be as accurate as possible, only leaving out the part about Chris. Tristan was quiet the whole time, not interrupting me even once. When I was done, he didn't say anything immediately, nor did he look me in the eye. "Thank you for telling me," was all he said. I wish I could read his mind or know what he was thinking. "What are you going to do?" I asked. Tristan didn't respond immediately. "What would you do?" I wasn't expecting that question. "I don't know." I spoke honestly. "Well, you didn't text him back, so what do you think will happen next, Crystal?" I didn't know what answer Tristan was expecting, and I honestly didn't have one. "Take out your phone," he spoke. I hesitated but complied. He would need it as evidence anyway. "It's still off," I told him as I stretched out my hand to give it to him. "Turn it on," he ordered. I was confused, but I guess I understood that he would need to actually see the message. We waited in silence as my phone powered up. I went straight to my 𝐶𝐻 and showed Tristan. He looked at it briefly before stepping back. "Text him back." This time my head shot up. "What?" Tristan didn't budge. "Ask him what he needs help with." My fingers hovered over the screen as I stared at Tristan. "Are you serious right now?" His face remained emotionless. I stood up and stepped up to him. "Tristan." He still stared at me with the same emotionless stare. "Say something," I begged. "Do you want to help him?" he asked. I blurted out. "If I was going to help him, I wouldn't have come to you." "Good," was Tristan's response. He put his hands on my shoulders and looked me in the eyes. "Because I need you on my side, Crystal. I need to know your allegiance is with me and not Roman. Can I trust that you will stand with me?" Roman popped up in my head again. "Don't let me down." I shook my head, shaking the thought away. Tristan's blue-green eyes were drilling into me. I'm on your side, I told him softly. He pulled away. Good. We're going to set a trap. 𝐾𝐥𝐬𝐻𝐬. Tristan 𝐊𝐢𝐧𝐼𝐴. I knocked on the window of the Chevrolet truck. Roman shot up from his sleep and looked around frantically until his eyes settled on me. Oh crap. I heard him speak as he shuffled out of the car. He opened the door and almost tripped on his blanket on his way out. I watched him straighten himself out before clearing his throat and bowing at me. Alpha Tristan. He spoke in acknowledgement. I looked at Bridget, who stood behind me. She just stared at him with distaste. What are you doing, candidate? I asked. Oh, I was just heading home, sir. He responded. You were asleep, Bridget told him. In your car. I was just resting. Roman spoke quickly. I looked into his vehicle and saw a duffel bag and books on the passenger side. Looks like you're living in your truck, I told him matter-of-factly. Roman turned to look into his truck. No, it isn't what it looks like. I was just... Save yourself the trouble of lying to your alpha. Quite frankly, it's embarrassing. Bridget spoke up. Roman sighed. I'm sorry, Alpha, he muttered. I saw a scarf hanging from the driver's side of the vehicle. I didn't have to pick up the scent to know it was crystals. Why are you living in your truck, candidate Desiree? I asked. And you already heard my beta. There's no point in lying to me. Roman looked at the ground. My foster parents, they kicked you out. Bridget asked. No. Roman replied immediately. I kind of left. You ran away. I clarified. Roman scoffed. It's not running away if they want you to leave. He still didn't meet my eyes. I turned to look at Bridget. She gave me a subtle shake of her head. I turned back to Roman. I was just heading to the manor. You're coming with me. You can get in your truck and follow us. Roman finally looked up, seemingly mortified. I couldn't. It's honestly fine, Alpha. The truck isn't that bad and it's just temporary. Well, until... I turned around and started walking away. It wasn't a question, candidate, I yelled. Now hurry up. The borders are the best vantage point for us. I say we center everything from there. Rick spoke, pointing out the areas on the map. I leaned against my desk and studied my team. There were only 9 people currently in the room. Myself, my beta, of course, 2 of my most trusted apprentices, Peter and May, Captain Park, 3 of her most trusted and competent soldiers, Raphael, Nia and Rick, and of course Crystal. I wanted to keep this on an extreme need-to-know basis. The last thing I needed was the entire pack going haywire and ruining my plan by hunting down Roman themselves. I don't know about the location choice. Nia spoke up. Letting him into pack territory could be a risk. But letting the Luna meet her outside pack territory is a bigger risk. May spoke up. What if he overwhelms the Luna? I saw Crystal flinch on the couch she sat on. She fiddled with her hands nervously. I could understand how nervous she must have been. I was 15 when I did my first undercover mission, and even though I had extensive training, my nerves almost got the best of me. Do you think he'll do that? Raphael asked, looking directly at Crystal. I don't know. She admitted. Could Roman hurt Crystal? I didn't know, but I wasn't going to risk finding out. I stepped forward to the map that was pinned on the table. We need to find a way to get the target to meet Crystal here. I pointed to the southwest mountains. Why there in particular? Nia asked. I tensed up. I didn't look up at my team as I spoke. Because it was their spot. Keep your emotions in check. I heard Bridget remind me mentally. I didn't turn around, not wanting to catch Crystal's gaze. Okay, but the mountains are one of our most secure spots anyway. He'll see us coming from a mile away. Bridget spoke. I agree. Peter spoke up. Roman once suggested we up our security on that hill. Why would he have reason to believe that you didn't do just that? I ran a hand down my face. Of course I remember the smug jerk advising me on how to run my pack. I leaned against the table. I guess you're right. That could be a problem. I just wanted to sweep everything off the table. All the plans and maps and folders. I had known from the moment I had gotten the idea that it wouldn't be an easy one. I couldn't say I was surprised that the traitor had contacted her. In fact, I had been expecting it. But that didn't stop me from being furious. Not at Crystal, of course. Sure, she hadn't told me immediately, but I couldn't exactly expect her to. The traitor had meant a lot to her once. I couldn't just expect those feelings to go away. But I'm glad she had trusted me enough to come to me with it eventually. I hadn't wanted to even involve her in the Roman investigation. When I found Roman, I wanted to be able to handle him without even considering what she would think about me. But the minute I heard that he had contacted her, I knew I would be able to use this against him. Maybe I had always known the key to finding Roman was through Crystal, but I hadn't been willing to go that route. I was still reluctant, but an opportunity had presented itself and I wasn't about to let it slip. I have an idea. Raphael spoke up gruffly. Well, what are you waiting for?
Mick. Spill.
Bridget spoke impatiently and I could tell the lack of sleep was taking a toll. I had called everyone here the minute I thought of my plan. It was time sensitive. But then again, that little comment Raph had passed about Bridget and I was probably still lingering on her mind. Now that I thought about it, I should probably say something to him about his little comments. I could sense how mad Bridget actually was. Raph and I had grown not to have boundaries when we had fought together. And I knew that if there was someone who would never need my protection, it was Bridget. But that didn't mean I would tolerate disrespect towards my oldest friend, even if it was Raphael. Raphael pushed himself away from the table while the rest of us were still brainstorming. Captain Park was explaining which positions would be best for all of us. I initially thought Raph was heading over to get some water or something, but then I immediately noticed he wasn't heading in the direction of the dispenser. I stepped away from the table. Where are you going, T? Bridget asked me. I didn't answer her and quickened my pace, intercepting Raphael just by putting a hand on his chest before he got to where Crystal sat. I'd be careful if I were you, I told him in a low voice, even though I knew everyone could hear me. Raphael looked at me for only a second before turning to look at Crystal. I was just going to say that if we're trying to get into the traitor's mind, we should ask the one person in this room who knew him the best. His lover. I knew Raphael had only said the last part to get on my nerves, but he had a point. If anyone could even know the slightest bit of Roman's way of thinking, it would be Crystal. I didn't want to admit it, but those 4 years they were together had to amount to something. I think it's a good idea, Tristan. Captain Park spoke. I narrowed my eyes at Raphael before stepping away and letting him advance. The fading empathy link immediately told me that Crystal was nervous. He's just going to ask you a few questions. I reassured her. Raph stopped a few feet in front of her. I watched him carefully as he folded his arms. Well, Luna, what do you think your little boyfriend will do? Crystal's eyes darted to me as if seeking something. Permission. Help. I simply nodded, hoping it was reassuring to her. Raphael was good at getting information from people. Those people were usually war criminals, but nevertheless, he knew how to get answers, and it was usually not the best idea to get in his way. I watched as Crystal swallowed and shifted slightly. Is not my boyfriend, was the first thing she said, and I'd be lying if I said it didn't bring me an immense wave of satisfaction. Bridget caught my eye at that moment and rolled her eyes. I ignored her and continued watching Crystal. I knew she was nervous at having all this attention on her. She sat forward slightly before looking at the ground. But I know Roman isn't stupid. He won't buy it if I ask him to meet me on the mountain. He'll know something is up. Judging by the surveillance patch, he must know about Tristan and I. Or maybe he might have even known before. She drifted off as if in deep thought. The only way to convince Roman that I'm willing to go against Tristan and help him is if I do things on his terms. She concluded. If I make him believe I still have feelings for him, maybe he'll take the bait. Raphael let out a humorless laugh and scoffed. How convenient for you. You asked me what I thought. Crystal responded surprisingly firmly. I smirked. Yeah, but I didn't realize you were trying to concoct a plan to get back to your lover. Raphael retaliated. Is he always this paranoid? Nia muttered. Raph turned to glare at Nia. You believe her? She's our Luna, why wouldn't I? Nia asked. Nia had been one of the last apprentices to work under my mother. She was an exceptional soldie and overall good in tough situations. That's why I had chosen her. She gets things done. Oh, I can think of a few reasons. Raphael countered. Raph, why do you keep trying to start something? We all just want to find a way to make this plan work. May spoke. Exactly. Bridget added, so if you don't have any helpful suggestions, deal with your man-child rage in another way. Okay, here's a suggestion. Maybe we need to stop letting in the women we're sleeping with. Raph spoke, oh boy. May's eyes widened, Bridget stood up straighter and Nia gave him a look that could kill. Now I know your misogynistic ass didn't just say that. Nia snapped. Captain Park simply pursed her lips. Peter looked away, scratching his head awkwardly. Rick gave a nervous glance at Crystal. My eyes immediately went to Crystal in concern. She looked at all of us in confusion. Me? She asked, now looking horrified. We're not. She turned her attention on me. Do they think we're grow up, Raph? Bridget snapped. I glared at Raphael when he met my gaze. Bridget was right. He was being childish. Why would he bring up a matter like this here and in front of Crystal for that matter? Raphael has a good 4 years on me. He is someone I've always looked up to and admired in life. He is a good soldier whose dedication and loyalty is inspiring. I've seen him in the toughest of situations. I've seen him face the meanest of heartbreaks, but I've never seen him let that get in his way. Until now. Captain Park looked at me and I immediately knew what she was thinking. She had warned me about the lines that would get blurred when I chose my friends as my right-hand men. The lines I would have to draw again. Raphael, you're excused. I spoke. Raphael scoffed and looked up at me. But I made it clear by my tone that it wasn't a suggestion but an order. Are you serious? I stepped forward. Your attitude and behavior in general are threatening to jeopardize this entire plan. This entire plan is bullshit. He countered before pointing at Crystal. I don't trust her, and if you would just open your eyes, Tristan, neither would you. I clenched my jaw. I had had enough of Raphael and his accusations. I was about to say something when suddenly Crystal stood up. This isn't easy for me, you know? She spoke, her voice shaky. In fact, her whole body was shaking. Not with anger but nerves. Anxiety. She stomped up to my side where I stood in front of Raphael. Roman fooled me too. She didn't yell. She wasn't calm either, and that's what worried me. I didn't know whether she was mad or maybe afraid. I should have seen the signs, but I didn't. She continued. And I can't change what happened, but I can help bring him to justice, and that's all I'm trying to do now. She was breathing heavily. I looked down at her. I wanted to do something to hold her and comfort her, but that would be inappropriate. All I felt was fury. Roman had messed up her life and he was threatening to do it again. I couldn't let that happen. The whole room had gone silent. Raphael just stared at Crystal for a while before shaking his head. Sorry, princess, but I don't buy it. He spoke. I growled, forgetting that Raphael was my friend. Get out. I seethed. Raphael rose his brows at me. Excuse me. I stepped in front of Crystal. I said get out. You're off this mission. Raphael looked at me in disbelief. He let out a humorless laugh. Tristan, I'm trying to keep you safe. To keep this entire pack safe. No, you're antagonizing my Luna, disrespecting my beta, and letting your emotions cloud your judgment. No. You are letting your emotions cloud your judgment. He shoved me back and I stumbled, almost knocking Crystal over. Raph, Peter warned as him, Rick, Nia and Bridget stepped forward. I turned around to make sure Crystal was okay before turning back to face Raphael. I clenched my fists and I didn't need a mirror to know my eyes were glowing. Raphael was shaking his head now. I'm your friend. I am. Your brother. I would lay down my life for you in a heartbeat. She wouldn't. I charged at Raph and grabbed him by fistfuls of his shirt. She is my heartbeat. I growled. I immediately regretted blurting that out. Not because it made me look weak, but because I knew even before I saw the look on Bridget's face that it was stupid. Stupid but true. Crystal was my world, but I wasn't hers, and I knew it. I was putting everything on the line for someone who didn't want me. But I couldn't control it. I had failed to fight the mating bond, and trust me, I had tried. But against all knowledge and logic, it was controlling me in all my actions. I didn't look around at anyone else. I just kept my eyes on Raphael. I willed my wolf to calm down and I unhanded and stepped back from Raph. This was already hard for me as it was. Leave Raph or I'm going to make you. There was obvious betrayal on his face. I didn't want to make him submit, but if he didn't leave soon, I would have no choice. Fine, Alpha. Fine. He looked around the room, then zeroed in on Crystal. I know I'm right about her, and you'll all see it soon enough. His footsteps were the only thing we could hear as he left the room. I turned to look at everyone else who just stared. I cleared my throat. Let's get back to work. I ordered. Crystal stood in front of me looking like she wanted to say something. I couldn't help but think back on Rafa's words. Crystal wouldn't betray me. She wouldn't do that. She definitely had the power to hurt me, but I trusted that she wouldn't. I trusted her. Alpha. Captain Park spoke up. I looked at the only true adult in the room. Other than Crystal, the rest of us were in our 20s. I nodded at her, wondering if she approved of my decision to kick Raph out. She was the one always telling me to be firm after all. I have a suggestion. She spoke. I'm all ears. I told her, secretly glad that someone did. She stood up. We've been brainstorming and making plans and plotting good hiding spots, but we're forgetting one thing about this rat trap. I rose my brows at her. And what's that? The rat. Captain Park spoke like it was obvious. She looked around as if expecting everyone to get it. You mean Roman? Peter asked, still looking perplexed. She sighed. This is why I prefer to work with more experienced soldiers. She stepped forward. Let's review the facts, shall we? She pointed at the board we had set up. Roman sent a message to the Luna saying he needed her help. Did he specify what exactly he needed help with? The question was directed at Crystal, who shook her head. No. Precisely. Captain Park exclaimed. You said he had bugged your phone case, didn't you? She asked Crystal. Yes. Crystal spoke. She sounded a little defensive, and I understood why. It was hard to believe something like that only going on someone's words. Yet the evidence was stolen. Captain Park continued. I was curious at what she was getting at. Yes. Crystal responded again. So this confirms what our alpha has been saying all along. There must be a mole in the pack, and we'd be right to assume that mole is working with Mr. Desire. It does sound logical. Nia spoke. Just a theory. Captain Park added. But if it's true, we need to stop the planning and go on instinct. You mean send her in blindly? I asked, trying to mask my outrage as well as I could. Captain Park was the best strategist I had met after my parents. I trusted her judgment, so I knew there was a strategy brewing underneath her words. I'm saying we stop making a plan when we don't even know what it is he wants. If this mole is following the Luna, then they're going to see right through a carefully orchestrated plan. She spoke. What exactly are you saying we should do, Captain? Bridget asked. Captain Park looked straight at Crystal. I'm saying the Luna needs to call him and ask him what hell he actually wants. 𝐿𝐴𝐵𝐵. If I were Tristan, I would have had you call Roman back the minute he responded to you. Captain Park spoke. It seemed like she had taken over the whole operation. Tristan sat at his desk, watching her silently. I couldn't tell if he was silent because he didn't know what else to do, or if he was just thinking. All in all, this evening had been a lot, and everyone looked exhausted, especially Bridget. But also, everyone was still going at it, brainstorming and trying to find a way to capture my ex-boyfriend without putting me or the pack in danger. T had Crystal text him back the minute he found out. Bridget spoke. I was about to say that. Not because I didn't think Captain Park didn't know already. Tristan had me debrief everyone in this room the minute he had called the meeting. But I did think she needed a reminder with the way she was talking, like he had messed everything up. A text doesn't prove anything. Captain Park spoke. Anyone can send a text message. If I were Roman Desire, I wouldn't respond either. If that's the case, then we might as well be on the wrong track as well, don't you think, Captain? Nia asked. I had never met Nia before today, but she seemed cool. I mean, I hadn't really had a conversation with her, but she had called out Raphael, and that's good in my books. I looked at Tristan again. Maybe that's why he was in a bad mood. Was it Raphael? I mean, the things he said. Or rather was insinuating. Raphael had shown me from the get-go that he didn't like me. But here I was trying to help take down Roman, which wasn't easy for me, might I add. And he kept trying to find little reasons to incriminate me for a crime I wasn't guilty of. I didn't like that. Bridget must have been right about one thing. The pack's going to start turning against their alpha. And it was starting with people in his circle. Captain Park shot me a look I couldn't quite decipher, as if she were wondering how many enemies I might have. It has to be Roman. May spoke. He gave her the phone case, and he's the only one with enough motive to want to spy on her. The Luna was secretly our alpha's mate, and an affiliate of Roman Desire. I think lots of people would have wanted to spy on her. Rick stated. I thought about that. If I was a Silvercrest werewolf and I knew of a human-raised girl who had just moved into the pack, I would be curious. Which a lot of residents here had been when I first moved here. Then I find out this girl's boyfriend had been a spy all along. I'd be more than curious, I'd be suspicious. But wait, we're not done. The aforementioned girl is also the secret Luna of the pack, but she only becomes the Luna right after a terrible attack which she was present for but didn't get hurt. That would convince me that there's something fishy about this girl. Hold up. You thought I was through? No ma'am, there's more Van Cliff wolves might be after her. That just spells trouble. Okay, now for the craziest bit, and I swear this one is like a really bad plot twist. That spy boyfriend. Remember him? He has been spying on her as well, but get this. She ain't got no proof. I'm not going to lie to you, on the outside looking in, Crystal Swan seems really shady. Hold up. Nia lifted her hands. Nah, you guys are not about to tell me that we've been here for 3 hours and we don't even know what the hell we're doing. I looked at the clock on the wall. Goodness, was it really this late? I remembered that Aunt Sarah had made me promise to call to check in every night. Did my first night count? I also realized I hadn't gone back to take Anita up on dinner, and I seriously regretted it. Nobody is saying that. Bridget spoke in frustration. Rick, shut up. Just a theory. Rick muttered, blushing slightly. I don't think we should dismiss Mr. Ricardo so quickly. Captain Park spoke. Yeah. Peter got up and walked over to the board that had been filled with so many details from my little statement that I wanted to believe some had been made up. We have a mole to consider. Peter spoke. And a couple of people in the pack who might not want a halfling Luna. Anyone could be plotting against her or trying to catch her in a Roman entanglement. People plotting against her. Tristan spoke, sounding somewhat offended. I didn't want to believe that anyone would stoop so low as to fake a whole Roman controversy just to get me to slip, but I knew it wasn't impossible. It's not like everyone here greeted halflings with open arms. And even though I hadn't seen the overall reaction to me being Luna, I had seen how people like Vice Headmaster Marin and Raphael had reacted with passive aggression and active aggression respectively. I hate to be the new Raphael, but I do see how that can be likely. May spoke in a small voice. She looked at me as if in concern. Having Van Cliff wolves on your tail isn't a good look. Especially not for a Luna. I looked at Tristan. The people in this room were his counsel, and what I mostly got from what they were saying was drop her. And if I didn't know I was innocent, honestly, I wouldn't be on Crystal Swan's side. The evidence against the girl screamed guilty. Tristan stood up. Did I ask you to give me a list of people who might not like my Luna and why, or did I ask you here to help me get the bastard who betrayed my pack? He spoke sternly. I heard the alpha's authority in his voice and the same fierceness he had when he has told Raphael that I was his heartbeat. I don't know if anyone has ever genuinely told you something like that, but no matter how you feel about the person, it moves you. The mating bond had been a mystery for me from the beginning. Especially when I looked around and saw other mated couples. They were so obsessed and utterly in love with each other, but here's was knowing completely well that I couldn't even come close to returning the affection Tristan harbored for me. And what frightened me is that I knew everyone in the pack would start to see it too. The alpha is right. Captain Park spoke. Let's focus on one problem at a time. We need to call Roman Desire as soon as possible. Before we lose our window of opportunity. Captain Park turned to Tristan. It's your call, Alpha. Tristan nodded firmly. He stood up. Nia and Peter, I need you to be on those computers and try to track his location or anything he might say that will give us a hint on where he is. Rick, extra audio, if you even pick up the sound of someone else breathing in the background, I want to know. Tristan walked over to me. He stared right into my eyes. Are you ready for this? Hell no. Yes. I spoke with a nod. Texting Roman a simple, what do you want? Wasn't speaking to him again. As Captain Park had said, anyone else on this end could have continued the conversation. He hadn't responded to the text message and part of me had been relieved. A call. That was a different story. A call almost always required an immediate response. And it was up to me to keep it going. Talking to Roman used to be the easiest thing in the world, but now, after everything that had happened, with what I was planning on doing to him, it was a whole other story. Phone. Tristan instructed. Bridget brought my phone to me. She had been tasked with thoroughly screening through it with Nia, and I was glad I wasn't the type of person who trash-talk people over text messages. Otherwise, I would have been in big trouble with her. She handed me the phone. You know the game plan. You have to convince him that you're on his side. She told me. Yeah, I know, convince him I still had feelings for him. I looked at Tristan from the corner of my eye. Yeah, that wouldn't be awkward at all. I wiped my hands on my jeans. Okay, tell me when. I spoke, my voice shaky. Tristan knelt in front of me. He looked right into my eyes. Hey, you can do this, okay? And I'll be right here the whole time. No offense, Tristan, but that didn't make me feel better at all. I thought of Raphael's provocative words. Pretending to still care about Roman wouldn't be difficult for me. I did care about him in spite of everything he had done. He's still the only person I had ever shared a genuine connection with here in Woodfell. But the minute everyone in this room saw that my feelings were real, it would confirm Raphael's theories about me being a spy, and then what position would that put Tristan in? Has an alpha ever had to throw his own Luna in the dungeons or whatever they had here? I didn't want it to come to that, of course. Yes, I still cared about Roman and what happened to him. Yes, I still felt that ache in my chest when I thought of him. But I couldn't deny what he did, and maybe 3 months ago, if Roman had contacted me and said he needed help, I would have jumped at the opportunity to do just that. Because then, a part of me always believed he could be proven innocent. That everything that had happened had been a huge misunderstanding and maybe he had been forced or framed. Anything that would explain why the man I knew and loved would commit treason. I have a suggestion. Bridget spoke up. Well, say it now, we really have to get a move on with this plan. Captain Park spoke, sounding slightly frustrated. Bridget looked at Tristan. I don't think you should be here for this. Tristan narrowed his eyes at Bridget. He didn't ask why, and I knew it was because he already knew. Judging by the looks on May and Bridget's faces, they knew too. Nia and Rick looked indifferent. I don't know if they knew about my arrangement with Tristan, but it wouldn't take a romance novel enthusiast to notice that Tristan and I didn't touch or even give each other googly eyes. I knew what I was doing to Tristan by not returning his affections. He never once forced me to, but it's a basic law of the mating bond that feelings shouldn't be one-sided if the bond has been accepted. The night in his room right after he had claimed me, when the empathy link had been at its peak, I had finally realized what me rejecting Tristan had felt like. How much pain he had been in for the longest time. The claim had made it hurt less, but the truth was the knife I had buried in him when I first rejected him was still there. Someone had just covered it with pretty flowers. I knew what I had to do to get Roman to trust me, and I would rather not have Tristan around to witness it. I think Bridget is right. I spoke quietly, avoiding Tristan's gaze. Telling Tristan I didn't want him around while I flirted with my ex-boyfriend was horrible enough, but it was even worse with all these people present to hear it. Actually, it might be better if there were as few people in the room as possible. Just so the Luna doesn't get distracted. Captain Park stated. Everyone turned to look at Tristan, waiting for his confirmation. I tried not to look him in the eye, but his expression was blank, and that worried me all the more. May Bridge and the captain will stay. Actually, can it just be May? I asked, not wanting to interrupt him and make things worse, but out of everyone here, I felt like May would be the least judgmental. Bridget was Bridget. Everything she heard in this room would be filtered through her I hate crystal mind and transferred directly to Tristan, probably making everything worse than it was. Captain Park was a senior and experienced person, but I can't forget that she did her job based on solid logic. I had seen it during my trial concerning Roman and after the Van Cliff incident. I didn't need someone who acted on stone-cold logic and risked misinterpreting my emotions. I needed someone who would at least try to understand. Tristan simply nodded. Whatever works best for you. I couldn't tell if there was bitterness in his voice or not. Captain, you're in charge. Nia and Rick monitor the call from the next room. Pete, you're with me. We'll head to HQ and pick up a few things. Bridge, you stay here and keep me updated. He ordered. Yes, Alpha. They all told him. He didn't look at me before leaving, and I couldn't really blame him. Peter squeezed May's hand before leaving after him. Bridget didn't glare at me or anything, but I knew she wasn't exactly happy. She gave me a don't mess this up look before leaving as well. Try to get as much from him as possible. Nia told me as she and Rick gathered their equipment. I knew they could tell that the mood in the room had shifted. All the best, Luna. Rick nodded at me before he left with Nia as well. Captain Park, who had been saying a few things to May, marched up to me. I thought she'd be mad that I hadn't wanted her in here, but she didn't look mad. Well, Tristan hadn't exactly looked mad either, but I knew he was. These guys knew how to hide their emotions way too well. Roman desire. Captain Park spoke as she handed me a folder that I hadn't noticed she had been holding behind her back. I looked at the front cover that had R. Desire printed on the front. I looked up at Captain Park. I knew what this was immediately. After all, there was one with my name on it in existence somewhere around here. Why are you giving me this? I asked. Because I don't want you to forget whose side you're on. I stared at the folder. I had sat through the trials. I knew all the evidence against Roman. I knew what he had done. I didn't need to be reminded. I know whose side I'm on. I told her sternly, forgetting that I was supposed to respect her. On the other hand, wasn't she supposed to respect me? I was the Luna. And why couldn't everyone just trust that, as the Luna, no matter how reluctant, I wouldn't want to hurt the pack? But most importantly, and probably more true, I wouldn't hurt Tristan. At least any more than I already had. Captain Park looked amused. I'll leave this here anyway. She slid it onto the table closest to me before turning to leave. May walked towards me. Are you ready? She asked. I nodded. I just wanted this to be over. I'll be over there. May spoke. I'm just giving you space, but know that I'll be here to guide you if you get stuck. I knew May would still be able to hear everything I would say. So would Nia and Rick, but it would still be better if I didn't have to look at them while doing it. I know this is hard. May spoke softly. But do your best, okay? This is exactly why I had chosen May. She turned to go sit at the table, which was still filled with plans and schemes. Whenever you're ready. She spoke with an encouraging nod. My nerves ate at me as I looked at the phone. I picked out the phone number. I allowed myself to stare at it for only a few seconds before quickly pressing the call icon. It started ringing and I shut my eyes. It rung thrice, then 4 times. 7, 9. Crystal. A way too familiar voice answered in relief. Ro, I couldn't stop myself from choking up. Ro, is that really you? Tears started streaming down my face. Anyone would be able to tell I wasn't acting. I really wasn't. It had been too long since I heard his voice. And let me tell you something, it wasn't that cute crying that you saw girls do in the movies. It was full-on ugly crying. Yes, babe. He laughed, a hysterical kind of unbelieving laugh. It's me, baby, it's me. I turned towards the other wall. I suddenly felt embarrassed for shedding tears. He didn't deserve any more of my tears. I tried to convince myself. Crystal, oh Crystal. He sighed. I didn't think you would call. When I hadn't heard from you or Chris, I almost lost hope. Crap. He had mentioned Chris, someone I had pointedly been trying to keep out of this. I didn't turn to see May's reaction. Can you blame me? I didn't want to sound too resentful, but even if I was pretending to still have feelings toward Roman, no normal person wouldn't be mad in this moment. What the hell, Ro? You're a freaking spy. You were lying to everyone. Even me. There was silence for a second and I thought I had scared him off. Where are you, Crystal? I hesitated. I turned to look at May. Lie. She mouthed. In the woods. I huffed. Where else do you think is safe to talk to you? That's why I took so long to call you back. I had to get away. Can't be easy now that you're Luna, huh? He spoke. I could detect sarcasm in his voice. I wasn't the only one keeping secrets. He spoke in accusation. I'm sorry, are you really judging me right now? You freaking bugged me. It was the only way I could keep you safe. Keep me safe. Keep me safe from what? Roman, tell me what the hell is going on. How did you become a spy? Why did you do what you did? Why did you lie? I know you have questions, Crystal. He spoke more hurriedly. But right now I'm only concerned about your safety. I told Chris that you needed to get out of Woodfell as soon as possible. I can help you get out, you just need to. What are you talking about, Roman? How am I in trouble? I heard him sigh as if he was angry about me interrupting him. 7 wolves came after you, right? Van Cliff wolves. I don't have to tell you how bad that is. How did you know that? I demanded. Do you have the whole Woodfell bug too? Is that it? Crystal. I'm trying to save your life. Would you just listen to me? I could hear the frustration in his voice. I heard him take in a deep breath. Do you trust me? I looked at May. She nodded. I know they were all expecting me to say yes. That was the point of all this, right? To gain Roman's trust. But I knew Roman and he definitely wouldn't believe it was this easy. I don't know how you can ask me to do that. After everything. May frowned and looked confused. I lifted a finger at her, telling her to hold on. Baby Crystal. His voice cracked. Was he crying? I had seen Roman cry once before. And let me tell you something, it took a lot to make Roman cry. Roman buried things, especially things he thought could be weaknesses. He pushed them away so deep that no one would ever be able to find them. I'm so sorry for everything. I didn't want to hurt you or your family. Trust me. But, remember when I told you my past was messy? Yeah. Well, you don't know the half of it. He let out a humorless laugh. I felt more tears form in my eyes. I so wanted that laugh to be real. I wanted him to be real. Him to be here. I wanted this whole thing to be a horrible joke. Come back. I wanted to beg. Come back to me. Are you in trouble, 𝐊𝐬? You said you needed my help. Have you gotten yourself into something? I promise I'll explain everything. Just, I need you to meet me, to come with me. I can keep you safe. I froze. You want me to come with you? I whispered. That was the plan, wasn't it? Leave Woodfell with 𝐻𝐸man. Find a place where we would actually feel accepted. But not like this. 𝐻𝐸man, you're asking me to leave my family. To leave, I stopped myself. I was going to say Tristan, which would have been a huge mistake. That has always been the plan, Crystal. Remember? You and me against the world. I fought back tears but allowed myself to sniffle. I wanted him to know how this was affecting me too. You 𝐻𝐸man, you know it's not that easy, right? Why? He demanded. Because of Tristan. You can't tell me you love him, Crystal. You rejected him for a reason. I know he is forcing you to be with him to spite me. There was so much resentment in his voice. Is that what he thought? Or what his mole had told him? You know about Tristan. What I really wanted to ask was how long he had known and how much, but I found that I couldn't really say the words. I didn't want to talk to 𝐻𝐸man about Tristan. For some reason the idea upset me. Made me angry even. 𝐻𝐸man didn't get to judge Tristan like he knew him. Of course. And I can rescue you from him. He'll never find you with me. I noticed May trying to get my attention. I turned to face her. Location. She had written the word down on a piece of paper. 𝐻𝐸man, do you love me? He asked. I couldn't help but hesitate. I know asking you this isn't fair. Hell, asking you to trust me isn't fair, but you know me. It is still me, baby. And what I told you the night of the AAP ball. None of it was fake. I meant it. I love you and you're still the best thing to ever happen to me. Come with me, let me keep you safe. I ran a hand down my face. Just, I love you, 𝐻𝐸. You know I do. I don't know why I let myself say that. I should have just said yes, let the plan go into motion. Why was I stalling? At the back of my mind I knew why. I sucked in a deep break. How did you know about the wolves, 𝐻𝐸? Did you send a wolf to attack Joshua Melrose? I knew May wasn't happy. Nia and Rick were probably face-palming themselves right now. I was just supposed to get the location from him and leave the interrogation to them. No. 𝐻𝐸man huffed. It's complicated, okay? He almost died. I spoke. Yeah, just, Crystal. Are you behind the attacks, 𝐻𝐸man? I don't call the shots, okay? He spoke in frustration. He didn't call the shots. Then who was? Was someone controlling 𝐻𝐸man? Listen, Crystal, we can't have this conversation over the phone and I can't talk for much longer. One more thing. I just couldn't help myself. Who are you working for? There was a longer pause. I thought he would abandon ship for sure now. I can't tell you that. At least not right now. I didn't know I was holding my breath right then. So someone was giving 𝐻𝐸man orders. I don't know why that made me feel so hopeful. Okay. Fine, but I have another question. You said one more thing, baby. He sounded exhausted. 𝐻𝐸man. Are you? I cleared my throat. I needed my words to come out as clearly and concisely as possible. Are you? Do you have my mother? There was another pause. Then a laugh. You're smarter than I thought, baby. I felt my knees go weak. I used the closest thing I had for support. Oh my gosh. You're with her. Is she safe? Can I? I wanted to talk to her. But I didn't know if I could ask 𝐻𝐸man to do that. I'm not with her right now, and is she safe? I asked. I had so many questions, but this was the most important right now. Yes, she is. And I can take you to her. Just come with me, okay? Will you come with me? Yes. I replied almost too instantly. Yes, I will. Where can I meet you? My old place. I know it's still empty. Meet me there tomorrow at exactly 11. Him. It won't be hard to slip out of the ball by then. Even if you're the Luna, everyone will be too preoccupied. Meet me then and we can leave. But how will you get past the borders? I asked. At least I hadn't completely gone off script. Don't worry about that. I will handle everything. Listen, baby, I have to go, but you have to remember that you can't tell anyone. Not even Kat or your uncle. Not a word, Crystal. I know leaving them will be hard, but you'll have me. You'll have your mom. I felt my heart clench. I know this wasn't real, but I wanted it to be. I so desperately wanted it to be. Okay. I agreed. 𝐊𝐲, baby. You have no idea how happy you have made me. I can't wait to see you. I love you, Crystal. He sounded so genuinely happy. I love you too, 𝐊𝐲. I spoke and I hated myself because I knew I meant it. See you soon. He hung up. Not even a second later, Nia and Rick came back in. We couldn't get a location. He's good. Nia spoke sounding slightly frustrated. But at least we know where he'll be. Rick added. Nia smiled at me. Good job, Luna. I found May's eyes on me. She frowned and for some reason I suspected she knew I hadn't been faking it. Didn't you guys notice something weird that Roman said? She asked. She had a disturbed look on her face. He said they were 7 rogues that came after Crystal. We only have 6 in custody.